World Tag Team Champions, pro wrestling legends, and as we were just talking, born and raised in North Carolina, Jeff and Matt Hardy. They are here ahead of TNA Wrestling, making its long-awaited return to Fayetteville for back-to-back nights this Friday and Saturday, November 8th and 9th at the Crown Arena. Be sure to check that out. All of the in-ring action will be taped for TNA's flagship weekly TV show Impact, which airs every Thursday night, 8 p.m. on AXS TV, and in the U.S., TNA Wrestling executives confirmed there will be championship matches both nights. We'll remind you of that as we go through this interview, but I'm ready to fanboy out a little bit here with the Hardy Boys. First of all, you brought in the TNA belts. I'm sure you guys have a billion of these things. Where do you keep the belts? Is there a storage locker, a safe, a display? Where's the belts?
I have all of the titles I've won on display in my basement, which is my gym, and also arcade and movie theater. A little bit of everything rolled into one. But that's where I have all the replicas. This is the legit deal. This is the title that we use, and we go and we defend it. And whenever we lose this, then the team we lose it to, they take it, and it's their responsibility to keep up with it. So we have to drag this thing around. It's sometimes tricky when you're flying through airports many, many times during the week.
Yeah, the only title that I have, am I loud enough?
Oh, yeah.
The only title that I have is when I was the world champion, my last run in TNA, and it was it wasn't the immortal title, it was like the enigmatic world championship with a face on it, and the eyes light up and the mouth lights up. But that's the only one I have at home, man. So I don't have any replicas.
It's about the memories, right? It's not about the hardware, excuse me.
Yes.
With you guys sitting here, two of the best tag team wrestlers in the history of the event, the history of the sport. I'm gonna put you on the spot here, barring each other, right? Because family's always coming first. Dream tag team partner, somebody that you haven't wrestled with in a tag team. I'll go one wrestler and one non-wrestler, right? Bring somebody from entertainment or your regular life. Who do you want to wrestle with?
That's a very interesting question. Someone from wrestling that I've never teamed with that I think I would like to.
Dead or alive?
I would say the Macho Man, Randy Savage. He was my first favorite guy. He was hugely influential in my career, so it would be him. And then someone that is a non-wrestler, I would almost say Matthew McConaughey. Just as a non-wrestler.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just such a big fan of him in True Detective as Rustin Cole and that, and he's such a well-versed actor.
I've got to say the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and then Vanilla Ice, man. Vanilla Ice inspired me so much back in '92. I was, oh my gosh, yeah. It was Shawn Michaels and Vanilla Ice.
I feel like that's doable. Have you met Vanilla Ice? I feel like we could get him in the ring.
A little conversation with him back in the day. I was about to do some kind of cameo in something, but yeah, we've never been in the ring or never met in person.
When you say he inspired you, when it comes to like building your persona, like do you grab from those kinds of people or I guess on the mic is so important and he being an MC, do you have elements of your kind of in-ring or out-of-ring persona that you grab from somebody like Vanilla Ice?
It's amazing how it worked out, man. I started like cutting my own hair like he did, and I was using a bunch of hairspray, and I still kind of look like that the first time we went to WWF. And dude, Ice became my nickname with Scott Hall. He's the first match I've ever had in WWE, and back in the day, the ring was so hard. It was a bad experience for me. But the second night I wrestled Sean Waltman, the 1-2-3 Kid at the time, and it kind of refilled my soul to want to continue this wrestling journey. But yeah, he inspired me so much. But then Razor Ramon calling me Ice was just so cool. Every time we'd go to TV, yo, Ice, what's going on, man?
Yeah, we were just enhancement talent, and the very famous Click, which was Scott Hall, it was Shawn Michaels, it was Kevin Nash, Diesel, 1-2-3 Kid. Those guys, like they loved Jeff from that first day, and they're like, yeah, Ice. And then later on, they would push. If another guy had a match, said, "Oh, you guys got to get one of those Hardy guys. They'll make you look great. They'll make you look like $1 million. Get a Hardy guy." The Click was very, very cool to us.
Jeff and Matt Hardy joining us here in studio. Our producer Dennis, I told you beforehand, is a big pro wrestling fan. I can tell on his face he wants to he wants to get in here. So Dennis, go ahead and jump in.
Well, Jeff, you mentioned your first match in WWF at the time. You were 16 years old. A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, you're like, I got a math test tomorrow, but I got to go wrestle this match first. Like, what was that experience like being 16 and before you know it, you're on a national audience?
Man, it was terrifying. It was crazy terrifying. And the Italian Stallion and George South are the ones who brought us in, and I had to sign the paper and like move my birthday, up a few years or whatever. And so I just did that, but it was so terrifying.
A very funny but true story is Stallion. I had done some stuff for Italian Stallion and George South in the past, and they said, hey, we need some more guys to go to TV because they needed 14 or 15 guys, whatever. They said, do you have some more guys that could have a tryout at our show? And it was a small indie event. They went and did it, and I said, well, my brother's 16. Is he going to be able to go? He said, no, just have your dad write a note. If your dad writes a note, he'll be fine. And then once we got our dad to do that, and he wrote Jeff a note, and then once we got there, he said, hey, kid, move your birthday back 2 years. He said, so you're 18. Okay, we're going to be fine. So that was a wild story.
That does harken back to the age when like a parent's note got you anything, right? You could get out of any class, like as long as mom signed it or dad signed it, you were good to go. Even I guess jumping into professional wrestling.
Yeah, 1994, I believe it was. It was crazy.
Wow, Jeff and Matt Hardy, TNA World Tag Team Champions here in studio. Don't forget, they're going to be in Fayetteville back-to-back nights this weekend, Friday and Saturday at the Crown Arena. And obviously all the action will be on TNA's flagship weekly TV show, Impact, which airs Thursday nights, 8 p.m. on Access TV. And there will be championship matches both nights, so make sure you make it out there to at least one. Coming to Fayetteville, we were talking off air. You guys are from 35, 40 minutes, Cameron, right. North Carolina, right outside Fayetteville. Do you bring a little extra juice when you come home?
Yeah, we also bring a little extra juice when we go there because we know we can drive back and sleep in our own beds that night, which is very motivating when you've been on the road for almost 30 years like we have been. Fayetteville's great too. It also holds a very special place in our heart because that is where myself and my brother Jeff went and saw our very first professional wrestling match. Our dad took us. It was a WWE event, and the main event was Andre the Giant versus Big John Studd, which was wild. And we got to see these large athletes, and we saw a ton of NWA and WCW there. And Jeff has a great story that I love from this place.
Our dad we'd always go by Arby's and get a couple beef and cheddars before we went to the arena. And, man, I was 12 years old, and Sting came out with the neon tights, the blonde hair, the painted face. I didn't know why he painted it, but I just loved it. And I reached out and touched his shoulder, and I was like, oh, my God, I want to make somebody feel like he made me feel. And thank God, it's such a blessing I've been able to do that. But, yeah, that was the moment I knew I was going to be a pro wrestler.
Now, obviously, you guys, and it's coming across here, you're fans of the sport. You were fans before you were in it. Is there anyone that still makes you a little starstruck? Like if a wrestler, fill in the blank, walked in here right now, is there somebody that would get you a little tongue-tied?
I don't really think so.
Or have you met all your heroes and they've become peers and friends, which might be even cooler?
Yeah, which is so wild. I mean, we've wrestled. I was in a WrestleMania with Ric Flair and suplexed him off the top of the ladder in a ladder match. He said, like, you're the only guy I trust to do this with me. I mean, it's been very cool. Jeff was aligned with Hulk Hogan. We've wrestled Sting. We've worked with, and these are the guys that we looked up to. And it's so weird that now the guys who looked up to us are working with us, and they're like so excited and so jacked and so pumped. Like the first time I get to wrestle series of matches with The Undertaker, and that was a big deal to me. That was very special. Getting to work with, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, whoever it may be. It's really cool, and they have become colleagues more than anything else.
Yeah, it's still kind of surreal for me to know that, I actually know Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, because when I think of pro wrestling, man, as a child, I see them, it was the NWA and the WWF, and those were the two guys from each wrestling dimension that, I was like, oh my God, that's what it's all about, being like they are.
Well, I have to say one of those moments just happened, which is Matt Hardy just sat next to me and brought up a ladder match. I mean, like if you're talking about people that are going to get excited, ladder matches, the Hardy boys, it's I was just told my buddy that you guys were going to be on the show yesterday. He immediately sent me like a 30-minute YouTube video, which was pretty much just you guys doing ridiculous stuff off of ladders. And it's athletic. It's a little crazy, if I'm being honest. Did you guys at any point in time think maybe like, I kind of wish our signature wasn't throwing ourselves 35 feet in the air and landing on these guys because we're putting our bodies through some real heck here?
Yeah, I definitely took steps to try and change that to some degree. But I mean, the Hardy boys and the Hardys are always going to be synonymous with ladders. And It's so cool. We've been doing this for 33 years. This is year 33 one right now. We just won these tag team titles just a couple weeks ago, and it was basically a TLC match. It was a Full Metal Mayhem match that had tables, ladders, and chairs, and it was nuts. He still did a swanton off a 14-foot high ladder and dropped someone through a table. I did a leg drop off a 10-foot ladder and put someone through a table. So we're still kind of hanging and doing our thing. But like,
does that ever become normal? Like, or do you get the same rush when you do it each and every time?
Yeah, I think I still feel it. I still feel the rush. I still feel the excitement. But it does become commonplace, which is strange. But I've also tried to work outside of my character of Matt Hardy of the Hardy Boys, and I've done some stuff like Broken Matt Hardy, which I did at TNA, and he was Brother Nero, and it was very much more theatrical and thought through, and it became like a big deal. It was one of the greatest times of my career because it was such a viral character.
Yeah, and the one we just had with TNA when we won these championships was a Full Metal Mayhem reimagined match because I painted everything up. The tables, the chairs, the ladders, and the ring canvas was the toughest challenge of it all, but I painted them all up very abstract. And just to see all that come to life was so rewarding, especially winning the titles after that match. And it was almost like I was in a Tim Burton movie or a different dimension, like looking at all this artwork on the. It was wild, but it was so rewarding. And man, it's my comfort zone. I think it always will be. Those extreme type matches, but it's very scary to be a 47-year-old human being still climbing up to a 14-foot ladder and trying to balance on the top of it and do this and then jump and put somebody through a table.
I can tell you that the fans still get the same. If you guys it's commonplace for you, the fans, every time you walk up there, you feel it. Dennis, what do you got?
Speaking of those TLC matches, you guys made that famous actually right here in Raleigh, which is now known as Lenovo Center. How special is it to not only make it such a big thing, but having done it right basically in your backyard in a state with such a deep wrestling history?
Yeah, no, that was a great time, and we were so honored and proud to be doing in Raleigh. We actually knew they were going to have that SummerSlam, and to give you a little behind-the-scenes info, it had been set since WrestleMania of that year where we were in a triangle ladder match, which was in essence kind of the first TLC match because we used all those different inanimate objects, myself, Edge and Christian, myself, Jeff, Edge, Christian, and the Dudleys. But we were supposed to win the match in Raleigh, and then like the night before, maybe 36 hours before, Vince McMahon contacted us. He said, you know what? He said, everybody knows you're going to win. It's too obvious. We're in Raleigh. This is your home. We can't do it. We can't do it. And I was like, well, sometimes the correct answer is to give the people the payday they want, and make them happy. He said, we'll do it at the next pay-per-view. We'll do it in the next pay-per-view. And we ended up doing it in Philadelphia in a steel cage. And we did win the match, but still to this day, I really wish we would have got our big win here in Raleigh at home. And I think just the crowd, and they would have went nuts.
That was a very special one to me because I'd always seen that for the longest time in my mind, like two people hanging up there where the titles were, and that's when we finally got to do that, and it was just so cool to pull that off. And even it makes me think of the spear that Edge gave to me as I was up there. Such a classic, immortal moment now in pro wrestling. It's just, it's the X Games of pro wrestling in my opinion, and I'm so glad that we've been a part of that.
So I mean, the behind the scenes stuff. As soon as you say you have a cool behind the scenes story, I'm immediately like, cool. I'm going to sit back here and listen to it. You guys have the autobiography from however many years ago, super successful. We just got the Iron Claw with the Von Erichs. When are we looking at the Hollywood biopic about your family and your trip through wrestling? When's that coming?
I'm excited for it, no doubt. I was a big fan of the Von Erich stuff, and it's funny. My wife kind of knew the story, but she didn't realize how many of the brothers, and she was just like, "Oh my God, this was great storytelling," but it was awful. It was awful, and it's very cool that we could have a movie that they could release like that, and there would be some ups and downs. Some guys fell or they hit lows, but then they rise up, and then ultimately ours ends up with a fairy tale happy ending, which is very cool, and we're so grateful and appreciative of TNA because we've been put in a fantastic position to succeed during this run, and that's kind of what we wanted. And for the last couple of years, we didn't necessarily get that, but we have here at TNA, and our goal is to help TNA grow as much as possible, help it expand, help it get a better TV platform, and their TNA Plus app, which is like their network, is doing great, and we want to help young talent too. That's what we want to do. We also want to give back and at the same time stay relevant.
Well, let's push in that because I love doing kind of like fake promos, right? Like cutting fake promos, like I think most people enjoy. Mine always comes out, a couple names you guys mentioned, it's like a half impression of Hulk Hogan and a half impression of Macho Man because, you know, they're so iconic.
Yes.
If you're giving advice to somebody trying to make a name for themselves, but obviously you got to be unique, you have to be like, what's the advice for the next generation who's trying to carve out their own niche in this giant sport?
Well, I always just say, and it's very challenging and tough, but authenticity, you know, to be authentic is something very challenging these days, just to do something new and fresh that hasn't been done. So much has been done, but I always say, yeah, originality is where it's at, man. There's something out there, you just got to find it.
Yeah, and I say that too. Just try and be creative, and if you can be you with the volume turned up to an 11 or 12. I mean, that really usually comes off as genuine. It comes off as real. So that's what I try and encourage people to do. If you go out there and you play some sort of character that you're not comfortable with, the crowds are so smart now. They'll see through it. You know, they'll see through it, and they know that you're not comfortable doing it.
We're talking with the Hardy Boys, TNA World Tag Team Champions, pro wrestling legends, and obviously North Carolina natives, Jeff and Matt Hardy, joining us here in studio. They'll be in Fayetteville, back-to-back nights of high-energy pro wrestling, Friday and Saturday, Crown Arena. Go ahead and check it out. I want to ask this because AJ Francis is a TNA wrestler, and I have a couple buddies that actually played at the University of Maryland on the football team with AJ. He had some runs in the NFL. For somebody like that who's jumping into TNA and, you know, bumping shoulders with legends, he obviously brings some athleticism and has some personality, but turning him into a wrestler is different than turning him into a defensive lineman for the Cardinals. You're seeing more and more of that. There's always been the Goldbergs or whatever, the guys that come from football, but you're seeing more and more of the recruiting out of the college sports world. Is that the right way to go about it, breeding the next generation to grab these massive athletes in maybe team sports or college wrestling and turn them into wrestlers? Or is it to go your style? I mean, you started at 16 as a wrestler and then grew into the legends you became.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone loves wrestling and they're passionate about it, and you can tell that AJ was, you can also tell that Moose is another guy who's a prime member of our roster. Those guys are incredible athletes, and AJ is like deceptively huge. We just had a match with him recently, you know, and we gave him a double suplex off the top turnbuckle, and I was just like, God, this is a huge man, a huge body of mass. And Moose is absolutely incredible. You can tell when you get in the ring with people that are like really diehard athletes that they are very athletic. Like, one of the scariest people I've ever been in the ring with is Brock Lesnar because he was just so real.
That tracks.
He's like one of those guys you're like, I certainly wouldn't want him upset at me, you know, where we legitimately had to like duke it out. Kurt Angle, there's been so many great athletes like that. But if someone truly loves pro wrestling and they're passionate about it, yeah, I say go for it.
Can you give us a story maybe where, you know, you wanted your fist to be 2 inches to the right, you miss a little bit, and then someone is upset at you?
Yeah, I can give you one story. I was doing something when I was a bad guy, and I was running down to the ring, and I was going to attack Brock Lesnar from the back, and we were going to end up throwing him in the ring, and the Big Show was there, and we were going to get on him a little bit, and I had a match with him after that. So we're running down, and Brock had been on the road. He'd been grinding very hard. He said, hey, whatever you do, he said, don't hit me in my ribs. He said, because my ribs are sore and they hurt. He said, just hit me at the top of my back. Don't hit me in my ribs. I was like, oh, okay, fine. And I come down and I swing very, very hard, and I get him high, but he'd leaned his head back, and I cut the back of his head, and it gashed him open to his skull. You know, which I obviously
it's not the ribs, right? I paid attention.
Yeah, I did. I didn't hit his ribs. You know, we got him in the ring, but then I came back. And I had a match with him 10 minutes later, and Vince McMahon was like trying to calm him down. He's like, "What?" He's like cursing and screaming and pacing, and I'm like, "This man may kill me." And it was live TV too, so it's like we're going out here and just. He was very aggressive, very brutal. He was totally safe though, but it was ultra aggressive. I was prepared to try and fight for my life if I had to.
I did the same thing with Ken Anderson when I was the world champion, I think, in TNA, and I was the only time I've ever been a heel in pro wrestling. I was the Antichrist of pro wrestling, and I was aiming for his left shoulder, and I thought for sure I could just hit his shoulder perfectly. Same thing, man. Back of the head, cut up, and just blood everywhere. And I was, it's always scary when that happens. Before I forget, though, AJ is a rapper as well, you know, in music, and I just did my first little concert with Joe Hendry, you know, last TV tapings, and so I'm really excited about maybe the three of us doing something together moving forward. But Friday night after the TNA Wrestling show immediately after, I'm going to do a concert with my Carolina guitar player. So there's going to be some Jeff Hardy original songs performed before our meet and greet.
Cool. There you go. There's going to be a little bonus activity. If you come out on Friday, you see a free Jeff Hardy concert.
Hey, send it over to us. We'll play it.
Yeah.
We'll promote that kind of stuff. I know we're running out of time here, and I want to give you time to promote everything going on in Fayetteville. But when we're talking about the future of wrestling, I think one of the biggest differences is the social media thing.
Sure.
It used to be, and I don't know if you guys saw it this way, but when you left the arena, like, you were kind of gone, right? And our imagination could say you were doing anything we wanted you to do when you were away. You could still be feuding, you could not, you could do whatever. Now the social, it's 24/7. What are the challenges, or how is that changing wrestling?
So social media is tough because, like, if you have guys that want to adhere to a certain character, I mean, you really have to, like, abide by that. And social media can be challenging, especially if they think you're some, like, special, tough, hard thing, and they see, like, a different image of you on social media. Like
someone snaps a picture of you at Dunkin' Donuts, and now it's like, oh, you weren't mean enough to me in the drive-thru. Exactly.
And, there's times, like, when I first started doing Broken Matt Hardy, I told Jeff, I said, hey, man, like, I'd like you to put me through this table, from a really high distance, and I'm going to act like something broke in my head. I was broken in my brain, and maybe it allows me to release, like, more potential. I realize that I can use more of my brain than I used to, or whatever. And then I'm going to try and be either, like, the supernatural character, or I'm just going to be completely crazy. And then once I started doing it, every interview I would do would always be in character. You know what I mean? And I would not come out of it. TNA wanted me to do an interview with Dave Meltzer, like, some serious, because I was very hot at that time. And I was like, well, if it's going to be 30, 40 minutes, whatever, I'm never coming out of the character. I'm going to talk about being 2,000 years old. I'm going to be talking with my funny British accent. I said, and I'm, like, not abandoning it, because as soon as you do abandon it, then, like, the disbelief that is going on with that character kind of fades away.
Man, social media is a weird one. I started using it a lot because I do an acoustic show about once a month, and I started, promoting my music gigs with these little videos on Instagram and everything. But then there was one point when we were still in AEW, I was like, man, maybe I could be a heel on social media. Like, I think I understand this stuff, and I ended up saying stuff that was probably offensive or whatever. But no, I'm just being a heel on social media. So it didn't really work out, but it did work out in the long run. I got a few matches, and before my nose got broke, man, I was starting to feel that love for the craft again. So that match we had with First Class, that's when I kind of felt that sensation again. Oh my God, I still got some, man. I still got some left in me, and this is going to be great. So it's nice to have fun in the ring again. So
yeah.
That's Jeff and Matt Hardy, who you just heard. All of the in-ring action in North Carolina this weekend, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Friday and Saturday, November 8th and 9th, Crown Arena. It's on TNA's flagship weekly show, Impact, Thursday nights, 8 on Access TV. Guys, is there anything you want the people to know, right? This is your home state. You're performing for your home crowd, your hometown in Fayetteville. What kind of show are they going to get?
It's going to be an amazing show. TNA right now is so white hot. We're on a great streak of sellouts. We've had full venues. We've been doing business very smart, and I think myself and Jeff, we have contributed to that effect. And
you don't have to be humble here. You cut a promo if you want to. Go ahead.
Joe Hendry is like. He is the most white-hot wrestler in all pro wrestling right now. He's just organically getting over and viral with the fans, and he's great. We've been working with him some, but he's been such a breath of fresh air for TNA. And there's also this very cool crossover that they're doing between TNA and NXT and WWE. And who knows who shows up from NXT or WWE at these Fayetteville tapings too, because there's a lot of unpredictability around the product, and we love that. I can tell you this, we're going to be wrestling both nights. Friday night, you'll see the Hardys in action. Saturday night, you'll see the Hardys in action, and we plan on defending these titles. We are going to be the greatest defending champions, and we really want to cement our legacy and show and prove to the world, make them remember who we are, that we're one of the greatest teams to ever do this.
Yeah, and there's this one guy, man. Matt can help me with his name, but he kind of, I was an influence to his career and him wanting to be the way he is now, but he's just amazing. It's like watching a
Leon
video.
Slater.
Yeah, he does a swanton 450. So he's got that grace of the swanton and then tucks into a complete rotation and splashes a guy. It's incredible.
Dennis was signaling me, so one more question here before we get you out of here.
Yeah, you guys mentioned the crossover sometimes with TNA, NXT, and even AEW's had a crossover with TNA in the past. What does that say about the health of the business right now that these promotions can have these different crossovers where you never know who's going to show up on a given night?
I think it's extremely positive, and I think it is beneficial for the industry. And especially, I feel like the NXT and the TNA crossover has been being done just the exact correct way. You know what I mean? They're taking care of each other. They make each other's company seem big, seem important, seem like it's a very important place to go. And I do dig that. And I think younger people that are just trying to get some notoriety behind their name, I think it helps them out and makes them look like bigger stars. So I'm a big fan of what Shawn Michaels is doing at NXT right now. And I think Triple H is also doing a great job running WWE, but I love the crossover thing. And on top of that, too, the people that are running TNA, they're doing a fantastic job telling stories and like booking from the opening of the show to the end of the show stories and stuff that is compelling and wants to get you emotionally invested in it.
Yeah, and I feel like broken Matt Hardy could come back like real quick and create this portal from TNA into NXT, and then who knows what might happen after that.
2,000-year-old dudes can do a little bit of anything.
Yes.
Right?
We appreciate you for stopping by and have a great show this weekend.
Thank you so much, man. It's going to be fun. Friday, Saturday. Let's rock.